My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today we're going to talk about my third installment of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. More specifically, I want to talk about the consequences and the suffering that's going to happen because of this decision on Roe v. Wade. There's going to be a massive red state baby boom, and there's not going to be very much infrastructure in order to deal with this. It's going to be a logistical nightmare. So we're going to talk about that. One of the things that we need to talk about right up front is the fact, and I've proven this on other shows, is that this pro-life movement is not about how much we love babies and pregnant mothers. It's not about that. It seems to be about power and control. In knowing that, we have to look at what could be the next consequences that we need to face. You don't have to look very far because they're hiding in complete daylight. They've already said it. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has already said exactly what they're going to do next. So now that the conservative camel's nose is under the tent, what does Clarence Thomas and the Supreme Court have in store for us? Well, he wants the Supreme Court to revisit and to overrule the legal right to contraception. Think about that for a second. So we're going to force women into taking zygotes to term. In order to make that worse, we're going to try to eliminate contraception. So we're going to force people to be pregnant, and then we're going to force them to have those babies. Now, somebody out there is saying, well, just don't have sex. Okay, that's logical and realistic. Don't worry. Abstinence works. No, it doesn't. So that's the first problem. So now they want to govern the fact that you can't even stop yourself from getting pregnant other than just not having sex at all, which is totally unrealistic. So what else does the Supreme Court want? Well, they want to revisit and they want to overrule the legal right. And I say this as an odd term because I don't think it's a legal right. I think it's just a human right. But they want to overturn the right to same-sex intimacy. Now, think about what I just said. Same-sex intimacy. Now, human beings, right? Like you could take two men or two women walking down the street holding hands. Actually, there's reasonable suspicion that there's intimacy going on there. They can be questioned. They can actually be put in jail for breaking a law because same-sex partners are not allowed to express intimacy, which is amazing to me. If you get two men or two women walking into a house at night, there's reasonable suspicion that there might be intimacy going on in that house, right? So they can get a knock at the door from police. They can get people calling up and saying that there might be a suspicion that two same-sex people are experiencing intimacy. Think about this. Now, we have people, our legislature, our government, we have these pro-lifers, conservative Republicans, evangelicals, thinking that it's okay to have a government that willingly supports this thought that they can tell people if they can show affection to other people. This is the weirdest thing I ever heard, but yet this is going to happen. This is what they want to happen. And in continuing with that, they want to overrule the legal right to same-sex marriage. These people are very, very strange human beings. You know, we're talking about this right to life movement, and they're so concerned with who loves who shows affection to who, forcing women to give birth. They're so enthralled in what goes into a vagina and what goes out of a vagina. I don't understand them. Maybe somebody out there does. Interestingly enough, though, one of the things that Clarence Thomas has said that he hasn't said they're not going to go after it, but he just hasn't mentioned overturning this. But they haven't mentioned overturning interracial marriage. Now, understand, I think the right for a black person and a white person to get married, it was from 1967. It's not that long ago. Up until then, these right-to-lifers, evangelical Christians, whatever you want to call them, they didn't want white and black people to get married because they thought or they considered black people to be of a different species. Think about that for a second. Now, Clarence Thomas, obviously a very smart human being, but he got on the Supreme Court through affirmative action. Now, as most people are, they're very proud people with a big ego. He doesn't want people to think he got put on the court because of affirmative action because he's black. So he has spent his whole career trying to be as white as humanly possible. And every chance he gets, he throws black people and minorities and women under the bus. Now, he's married to a white woman, again, trying as much as he can to be a white person and act like he didn't get affirmative action into. Now, I'm not saying he didn't do the work, he didn't graduate school or whatever the heck he had to do, but let's be honest, it was affirmative action. But he's married to a white woman, so that's the one time where he's not going to overturn something. Our country is literally being partially, at least in part, run by a guy who absolutely hates himself to the core and is trying to deny everything who he is. But of course, he doesn't want to overturn interracial marriage because he's married to a white person. So this whole country is basically all about him and his sickness. But that's a whole nother show we can do. Let's continue. The 26 red states that are going to restrict and ban abortion are the least prepared to deal with the consequences and the suffering that's going to happen. Quick review for people who don't know, or if you didn't want to hear it, so you're going to have to hear it again because it's an absolute fact. The United States already has the worst maternal and infant mortality rates of all the first world nations, period. We win. Go America. We're number one, right? But we also spend the least amount of money as a percentage of GDP to support education, housing, medical, and supporting the needs of pregnant women, mothers, and children. So what makes you think that we're going to be prepared to handle all of these extra children that are going to be forced to be born? We already know the answer. It's just going to be massive, massive suffering due to the red state baby boom. Now, there's about 600,000 abortions per year, give or take. I'm going to round off. We have 50 states. There's 26 states that are red. So let's just average this out and say there's going to be about 300,000 forced pregnancies per year in these red states. That's the first part. Second part, it takes about $200,000 to raise a child from birth to 18 years old. And I'm being generous here. Typically the numbers run closer to 230 to 240, but let me just lower the numbers. Now, if we multiply those, what we're looking at is $60 billion. So that means that these red states are going to have to come up with $60 billion of extra resources in order to raise these children. Is this going to happen? No. If we divide it by 26, right, 26 states into 60 billion, we're looking at 2.3 billion extra dollars per red state that they have to come up with. We're talking about places like Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. They don't have $2.30 extra. They're already bankrupt. So what's going to happen here? We already know what's going to happen. Now, I want to name a number here, and I'll probably say this more than once today because it's so important that it needs to be said. And if you're listening to me for this long already, 10 minutes into the show, please send this to somebody. Or if you don't want to send the show to them because that's not your thing, keep naming this number and say it loud and clear so people can understand, especially because the red states tend to be anti-intellectual, and there seems to be a problem there. They're very low educated states, so maybe they need to hear it 10 times over. But here's a number that you need to know. You ready? 75% of women, 3 out of every 4, 75% of every woman wanting abortions earn 200% less than the poverty level. Think about that. We're talking about people that probably can't hold a steady job, that don't have jobs, that are already getting welfare. They have medical issues, whatever their issues may be, but they earn 200% less than the poverty level. And these are the women that are gonna have to take their zygotes to full term and to be able to be mothers and to raise children. How is this gonna happen? It's not gonna happen, and they're not gonna add to it. Just a question. Do you think that these red states are willing to give every mother a check for $200,000 in order to raise their child? We know the answer to that. Hell no. Is not going to happen. Let the suffering begin. Now, someone's going to say, don't worry, we have a foster care system. I agree, we do. Guess what? This system is broken to the core. There's no question here. It's absolutely and completely broken. Depending on the day, there's about 425,000 children in the foster care system at present. Right now, there's shortages of placement. There is massive and rampant emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. It's actually normalized in the foster care system. It's almost that it's better to have a roof over their head even though they're getting abused. People know this. People in the business know this. So yes, abuse and neglect completely normalized in the foster care system. These children, obviously, they're highly traumatized. They have learning disabilities, behavior issues. 81% of foster children end up getting arrested. 33% end up in prison. Over 20% end up homeless. So we're already looking at now over 50% of children who go into foster care end up either in prison or homeless. Come on now. The thought that this is an actual cure for this problem of this red state baby boom is ridiculous. It's just causing more and more pain. So somebody say, listen, we can increase adoptions. You know, that's the way people are going to adopt. No, they're not. There's 425,000 children in the system now. What makes you think that people are going to start adopting? Even if you added one more child to the system, what about the other 425,000? If people were willing to adopt and they were going to adopt all these children, they would have done it already. That's not going to happen. Here's something interesting for you. Let's say you do want to adopt. You're that type of person. You know, you're a good person. You want to adopt. Okay. Well, depending on what the state is, it's different for each state. But you're going to have an extra 10,000 on the low end, 70,000 on the high end to adopt a child. You're going to have a lot of extra cash lying around. That's number one. You're going to have to be pretty well-to-do. You got to be about 21 years old. I've seen some states, I think you have to be 25. But let's say the average is 21 years old in order to adopt a child. You have to be mentally healthy and you have to be physically healthy. That sounds normal. But here's the thing. Of the women who are being forced to have their children, none of them meet the criteria of a person that actually wants to adopt a child. So pro-lifers, guess what? That's an admission that you know that these mothers, that you're forcing them to have these children, they are in no way capable of being good mothers because of a lot of reasons. Not because they're not good people or they don't want to be a good mother. They don't have the resources. They don't have the extra money lying around. A lot of them do have physical and mental health issues. And if we take a quarter of the 300,000 births we're talking about and say, let's just, for example, say 75,000 of them are going to be entering into the foster care system every year. It's a possibility. That number might be a little bit high, but it's a possibility. Think about this. In 6 years, we're going to more than double the amount of children that are in foster care right now. Is this possible? In 7 years, there's going to be about 1 million children in foster care. Come on. This system is broken, and it's only going to get more broken. You ever see kids in the foster care system? Babies? Let's just talk about babies for a second. Did you know that they don't cry much? They don't. You think it would be loud, maybe cry. You want to know why they don't cry? It's a defense mechanism. Because they've been crying to be held by their mother or father, and there's nobody there. They never develop appropriate and healthy attachments. So they stop crying. And these idiots, they're like these whoever, legislators, politicians, pro-lifers that just go to church and they read a Bible that have nothing to do with the United States, by the way. They don't understand child development. They probably think a bunch of kids not crying is a good thing. Oh, they're so obedient. No, they're not. They're traumatized to the depth of their soul. And they stop crying as a defense mechanism because they know that there's nobody there to help them. And then they're going to go through life like this. But you did this. This is pro-life. It's more like pro-suffer as much as humanly possible. And by the way, if you're a same-sex couple and you want to adopt in a red state, good luck with that. So again, it's not pro-life, is it? It's more like we're going to judge you and completely judging you. You can get two loving people, same sex, got an extra $50,000 lying around to adopt a child, mentally and physically healthy. Try it in a red state. They'll deny you. They'll deny you. Not in New York or New Jersey. You can have a same-sex couple and adopt there, but that's a liberal state. Plus, abortion's legal there too. Let's move on. Overall, the maternal death rate is going to increase by at least 24%. Thank you, pro-lifers. That sounds very pro-life to me. But it's going to affect minorities much more. Black mothers are 4 times more likely to die than a white mother, although the overall rates are going to go up 24%. So figure that percentage out for yourself. For black women, it's 118 times more dangerous to give birth in the United States than it is to have an abortion. And you pro-lifers are going to make it worse. You're killing black women here at a very high rate. But as we said before, who voted to overturn Roe v. Wade? Men did, of course. But 52% of white women also voted it away. So there you go. Something else you have to think about. And again, I told you I was going to mention it more than once, so I'm going to mention it again. 75% of women wanting abortions earn less than 200% in the poverty level. These people would never be allowed to adopt, but they're being forced to have children. Way to go, pro-lifers. Let's talk about some unexpected consequences here, because there's going to be a lot. So we're going to have, and expect this on a regular basis, there's going to be a lot of underage pregnant girls that are going to be forced to take it to term. And if you look at a lot of these red states, there's going to be a lot of incest, because that's just the way it is. And so you're going to get a lot of children having children and being forced to. And the father of the child is going to be the father of the grandchild, if I said that right. You know what I'm saying? Think about that. Rape victims are going to be made to take these children to term. Let's talk about some other things here. About 20 to 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. Expect that a certain percentage, I don't know how many, we don't know yet, but a certain percentage of these are going to be questioned for murder, manslaughter. Because how did it happen? Did you do it yourself? Did you try to cause the miscarriage? You're going to be up for questioning now all the time. I've been thinking about whether I should say this or not, but I think I'm just going to. So here's my experience with miscarriage. I'm not a woman, obviously. I don't know what it feels like. And I haven't been around a lot of them, so I don't even know what it looks like. But I can tell you this, I was married, and there was a time when she said, look at this, right? And so she had me look, and I looked at the toilet bowl, and there was some blood. Now, me personally, I don't know what that feels like, but I could say it looked no different than when I would have like a minor nosebleed or something like that. Or if you were, you know, you had a heavy squat workout the day before, and it's like maybe you had like a little bit of a hemorrhoid thing, and there was just a little bit of, there was some blood. And I was like, uh-oh, what's that? She said, well, I think I just miscarried. It's like, oh, okay, what do you do? She said, well, you flush it down the toilet. There's like, a couple of, like a clot of blood. That's it. Now, I'm not saying that that's like a good thing, but literally, we're talking about now that situation there, you could be brought up on charges for something like that. And these pro-lifers are comparing some blood in a toilet when a girl feels like I guess it's kind of like a period. You're comparing that to killing mothers. You're comparing that to leave people in foster care their whole life where they're being sexually and physically and psychologically abused. I think there's a big difference between spotting of blood in terms of emotional content compared to lifelong killing somebody and destroying their life or just letting these mothers die. There's a big difference, but that's me. I'll leave that up to you. There's a lot of risk factors when women are pregnant. We talk about, it could be hypertension, diabetes, whatever it is. But the one thing that's not brought up very much is the fact that one of the risk factors is assault and murder. What's going to happen here, and almost every social scientist and therapist that I know and I've read about, they all agree, let me say we all agree, is that the assault on women and murder for women is going to go up. Because there's going to be plenty of guys out there that are afraid to be put on the hook for 18 years for taking care of a child. They don't want to pay child support. With Roe v. Wade, you could kind of have a conversation. Maybe some men, obviously, they're going to try to coerce a woman into getting an abortion. That happens. But in this situation, the only coercion is going to be physical force and violence, and murder of women is going to go up. Again, if you're pro-life, I don't understand this. I was watching a documentary the other day, and they talked about, how many times like these pro-lifers are blowing up abortion clinics and shooting doctors. How in the world do you call yourself pro-life? I don't know how you can do that. More unexpected issues, or issues we should expect. There's going to be a confusion about when abortion is life-saving and when it's not. A lot of these politicians and pro-lifers, well, almost all of them, none of them are doctors, but yet they're going to try to make decisions for doctors, and it's going to delay the care that women should get. I don't know anything about ectopic pregnancies, and probably neither do most of these pro-lifers, but doctors in that field do, and they should be making those decisions with pregnant women. These legislators need to get out of people's bedrooms, and they need to get out of the medical offices as well. But this is going to cause more death for women, directly related to the pro-lifers. Something else I find interesting. As a personal trainer, I've dealt with a lot of well-to-do to rich people in my life. And a lot of them are extremely hypocritical. They're doing the happy dance right now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, knowing full well that they started their family through using in vitro fertilization. So odd. Like they have enough money to be able to have a family through in vitro fertilization. But that's going to be banned as well, most likely. So again, even this abortion thing, if you have enough money, you can go over state lines. There's going to be plenty of guys in Texas that are going to pay for their wives, or most likely their mistresses, to go over state lines to have an abortion. And then they're going to pay, obviously, for them to come back. But yet all the poor people are going to have to be the ones that suffer. And again, it's going to be these white old men making the rules that they don't follow any of the rules. It's insane. More consequences. Did you know that the crime rate has gone down about 45% since 1993? It's very interesting because the way these conservative Republicans always talk about it, they're always saying how the crime rate is going crazy. It's always going up. No, it's actually not. It went up for the time during COVID, during the lockdown. That's true. But other than that, it's been trending down like super quick since 1993. Why is this? What is the number one correlation to that? Well, Roe v. Wade got passed in 1973. If you fast forward about 20 years, we're talking about people who don't have resources, and a lot of them end up in the prison system. In other words, those abortions that happened, if they didn't happen, you're talking about a bunch of poor people who need resources that are most likely going to be performing all the crimes. And that would have started around 1991. So men typically do their most crime between 18 years old and 25. So if you look at that time frame, what you'll see is that the crime rate dropped because there was less poverty and less poor people in that time. So again, what can you expect? If we overturn Roe v. Wade like we have, expect 20 years from now there's going to be a massive, massive crime increase. And people are going to go, more cops, we need more cops, or whatever they need. And that's not true. It's going to be because they're overturning Roe v. Wade and they're putting people into situations where they just can't live. So that's what's going to happen. Let's talk about some other interesting things here. There's going to be a rise in communicable diseases. People don't want to talk about this because it's a kind of a touchy subject. But listen, if you want to take away contraception and you want to take away the fact that people need rubbers, right, to have sex safely, you want to take that away, that's going to be a problem. Here's the other problem that people don't want to talk about. You think 15, 16, 17, whoever age people that are afraid to get pregnant, you think they're going to stop having sex? No, they're not going to stop having sex. And a lot of them don't even want to use contraception. That's true. What's going to increase, and these conservatives don't want to hear it, but your little 16, 17, 18-year-old daughter is going to become an expert in anal sex. That's what's going to happen. Anal sex is going to increase because it's a lot less likely you're going to have a baby, right? That's what's going to happen. So let me be the first to tell you that if you don't understand that because you don't have sex education in your state. Women who carry unwanted, unintended pregnancies to term are more likely to experience depression, more likely to experience interpersonal violence, psychological distress, living in poverty, which leads to crime, which I've already said. Most likely they're going to lack housing, nutrition, and medical care. And oddly enough, most likely they're going to raise their child alone. Typically, what's going to happen is these women who are being forced to have their children, there's going to be poor birth outcomes, there's going to be low birth weights, expect to see a lot of premature babies. A lot of them are going to need special services, some of them for the rest of their lives. I hope today's show was valuable to you today. And if you can, I know the show's long, but you don't need to listen to all of it, or your friend doesn't need to listen to it all if you send it to them. But do me a favor. I have listed everything factual for these last few shows here. If you want to know how to win a debate, if you want to know how to win an argument, and you're trying to argue with these pro-lifers, send them this video and see if they can actually debate you, because they won't be able to do it and you'll win. So I want to help you debate or argue with them. I think in another show what we'll do is we'll talk about how to overcome this and how to take back your basic human rights. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.